and welcome back to another episode of Stories from the Shed. My name is Adam, your host, and with me again this week, a man who always tells me that he drinks alcohol because no great story ever started with somebody eating a salad. Jake, how you doing?
I'm good. I don't eat salad.
I know.
I drink a lot of alcohol, though.
That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I just got tagged by a listener this week on a post on Facebook about a Twisted Tea truck tipping over. I'm like, oh, Jesus, what am I supposed to drink this week?
Just funny that you're the first thing that came to mind when they saw that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Apparently, I have a reputation for drinking too much Twisted Tea.
You're a tea drinker.
I like it. I can't help it.
How was your week?
It was good.
Good?
It was good. Finally got my car registered.
That's
Finally
good.
got wheels. That's nice.
Good to be legal.
Yep.
And we have a surprise tonight. Surprise, surprise. We got a fill-in guest here, a reoccurring guy. Jason, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for coming on such short notice.
No problem.
We're down in the shed earlier today, and we're setting up, and we're kind of doing the pre-game thing. And you message us, and you say, what's the topic tonight? And I said, Lent, come out and do it with us. And about half an hour later, here you are. So thanks for coming.
No problem. I don't know much about this case, but I'm excited to learn about it.
Yeah, well, what else would we be doing on a Friday night? Have some fun, have a couple of beers, and we'll talk a little bit about Lent here. And you know what? A little fun coincidence as we are recording this on March 22nd. We're in the middle of Lent, so we're doing Lent during Lent. So that's pretty cool.
It's almost like we planned it.
We didn't. This just happened. So how you been, Jason? I mean, it's been a few weeks since you've been on. What's new?
Oh, got done with the restraints of the old shitty job and kind of working on my own now. So
out with the old and in with the new.
Yeah, a lot better, a lot more family time, stuff like that. So
yeah,
you make your own hours.
Make my own hours. Not making money for the man upstairs, making it for myself. So
nice.
Yeah,
good for you.
It's always a good feeling, and good luck with that. So this week. Well, I guess before we get into it, we have...
Oh, you caught yourself.
I caught myself.
I'm so proud of you.
I always want to skip the beers and go right to the story, but this week we have Golden Monkey by Victory, and this one here is a Belgian-style beer, and it's at 9.5%. So Jake said, let's not have one before, or crack one right before we start.
It kind of smells funny.
He's like, because these kind of beers at 9.5... it's either going to be really good or it's going to taste like a pile of shit in a 12-ounce can.
Well, I can tell you it doesn't smell like a pile of shit.
Let's figure it out here.
Jake's also used to girl beers. So those Twisted Teas are like 3%. So
Ow.
Good. Well, yeah. Doesn't smell bad.
It's thick.
Jake, the face that you're making.
That's what she said.
Let's see here. Whoa.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that face. What's going on? What are your thoughts?
We need cameras. My thoughts are that we're going to have a few left of this six-pack going back to the house.
Is this the first bad review?
No, it's not. We had that shitty one from Vermont there.
Yeah, and then we had that weird one that was just kind of obscure from up North Maine somewhere, some IPA.
Yeah.
Looked like it was made in someone's decrepit garage.
The one with the dog. But this is...
yeah.
This
is
is
the only thing good about the beer.
This is an eyeball with legs and some heads, and I think if you drink too many of these, you're going to feel like shit.
Yeah, probably.
This is not my number one choice. I'm going to go right out. I'm going to give it another sip here because we got to get a rating on this and then get going.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to stick to one, to be honest with you.
Stick to the Natty Daddies, guys?
Oh,
dude,
God.
This is kind of reminding me of that, actually. You say that. It has that...
It's not that bad.
This isn't good.
You really don't like it?
This shit is getting a 2.5 Scully finger rating from me. Ugh. Damn it.
I'll finish it.
I'm going to finish it. I'm not a quitter. I'm going to finish this shitty
I'm sorry,
beer.
it's getting 1. It's not that it's bad, it's just not for me.
It's awful.
No, it sucks.
Jason, you want to throw one away?
No, I don't.
No?
So today we're going to be doing Louis Lent. And he's somebody that we have brought up a few times, or a couple of times at least.
Yeah, he came up in one of the cases before. I think it was Kimberly Moreau.
Yes, he did come up. We'll kind of, I guess we'll probably bring that back up again real briefly. And we kind of compared him, I think, in other episodes to other serial killers and other, type predator people that we've discussed on this podcast. So Louis Lent, what do we got here? What's our lowdown on him, Jake?
Well, he's a murderer. I don't know if he's a serial killer. He's only been convicted of two murders.
Yeah.
He was killing people between 1983 and 1994, supposedly. He was arrested in January of 95. He's been formally charged and convicted for the murders of Jimmy Bernardo, who was 12, and Sarah Ann Wood, who was also 12. Take it. Oh,
I'm sorry.
Look what you forgot to do.
Penalty,
on, everybody.
Penalty, he needs to shotgun one of these beers.
Yep, do it.
Oh, no, anything but that.
Do
Anything
it.
but that. This is terrible. That'd be like the worst fucking penalty ever. You're going to drink this slime. You're going to suck this fucking curdled beer. It's like chunks. There's chunks in it. I swear
There's chunks in it.
There's
Get
lumpy,
outta
chunky
here.
beer.
Get out of here.
So,
There
anyways,
ain't no chunks in
Louis
it.
Lent. So he was, what do we say? His method of murder was hanging and beating with a tree limb.
That's unique.
Yeah, well, and the area that his area of operation was kind of in the Massachusetts, New York.
What is he, a business?
But
area of operation?
Well, of how would you call it, Jason? His area of
Hunting ground, I
hunting
guess.
grounds.
Yeah, that's better.
But it's also been suspected that he has prowled in other states as well,
Yeah.
as well as even up here in Maine.
Yeah.
Right now, he is currently incarcerated in Massachusetts. He's got life without parole, and he also received a sentence in New York for these crimes as well, 25 to life in the state of New York. And so we're going to, I guess, not so much tell the story of Louis Lent, but maybe we're going to be discussing.
Well, here's the thing. There's not a lot of information on like his prior history, his childhood, really. All we really have is some I guess, firsthand claims of people who he had worked with, people in his community, and then you really kind of only have the breakdown of the murders.
Yeah, because what we have basically on his early childhood was that he was born and raised in upstate New York in the hamlet of Reynoldsville. I don't even know what a hamlet is, but it sounds pretty fancy. In Schuyler County?
Schuyler.
Something like that. He dropped out of high school in 1967 when he was in 10th grade. He moved to Florida. Another thing that's going to come up is this guy is on the go.
He lived off and on in Florida, though, right?
Yes. He was off and on until about 1983. Mm-hmm. He was down in, the town of DeLand, which is northeast of Orlando.
Okay.
Very busy area. A lot of kids in that area, too. So I wonder if that's what brought him down there as a place of interest. But
Florida has a lot of issues with murderers and serial killers and child
Shame on you,
abductors and
Florida.
stuff
Boo.
like that. Hey, Florida man's a real thing.
Yeah, that's very true.
And you know, what do we got, Jake?
What are we looking
I
at?
thought you were prepping something here, but
no, I was trying.
But Louis Lent was always on the go. In fact, he was even arrested in June of 1976 in the town of Truth or Consequences in New Mexico. Kind of a cool name.
Yeah, that's a really cool name for a little town.
Do you know how they got that name?
No.
There actually it used to be a game show called Truth or Consequences, and they basically had like a contest where the first town that was willing to rename their town Truth or Consequences, they would go there once a year and record the show there.
Yeah, and how long did that show last?
One season.
A few seasons, but
Did it? So
yeah.
there's a few Truth or Consequences up there?
Yep, and the guy who did the show still goes back to that town every year.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, this Truth or Consequence is about 116 miles away from Mexico.
Yep.
So Lent is always on the go. He's a very busy guy. But for most of the 43 years that he lived within free within the margins of society, he held a bunch of different odd jobs.
Yeah, he went from cleaning theaters and different stuff, and he had other jobs too.
How long do you think it would take to clean an 11-screen multiplex?
It would take
Oh
a
my God,
while.
I would think so.
You
I
would
mean,
think.
I know my kid, man. He'll waste the whole thing of popcorn on the floor.
Lent was on the task, though.
And not only that, but movie theaters don't close till midnight? So
Yeah.
you're there till 3, 4 in the morning at least.
At least, yeah.
He probably
Yeah.
enjoyed being alone. He's kind of an oddball, kind of just
And that's true.
watching the kids leave at the end of the night and and their parents and all that stuff, and kind of getting to the shadows of the movie theater, doing whatever the hell Louis Lent was doing as he was cleaning
Cleaning
these
out
places
used
up.
condoms.
Yeah, not during Finding Nemo.
What a horrible choice.
I'm sorry.
Anyway,
so Jesus. One of his acquaintances from his past, recalls Louis Lent as being known to everybody as Louis. Oh, Louis.
Oh, Louis.
And he was being keenly interested in horticulture.
What is horticulture? Horticulture.
Like growing plants and stuff.
Growing plants and stuff.
that's-
Aren't we all?
What kind of plants?
I think that's code for he liked to grow some pot.
That's probably it, yeah. At the theater, however, cleaning compounds and all this other stuff was another thing that he was interested in as well.
Yeah, his manager said he had to hide him because he didn't trust Mr. Lent's ability to follow even simple instructions. So,
So he was nice but kind of dumb?
You might accidentally blow the place up with a mixture of chemicals.
Okay.
Well, I found that kind of interesting. What do you think he was doing?
I don't know. Maybe he was making homemade bombs.
Trying to make homemade chloroform.
Yeah, yeah, you're probably right.
You're probably right, yeah.
You know what else is really interesting, and I can kind of relate, except for the last part.
I say this is a good part.
This
point
is
here,
a
Jake.
good
What do you
point for
think?
me to bring up.
Yeah,
Perfect. He was really into cars, and he claimed to be an expert in repairing them, basically. But he used to drive around beat up pieces of shit, and they barely ran. And when they did need repairs, he would just call up his buddy and be like, "Hey, 30 rack, help me fix my car."
Yeah,
and that's how that worked.
We don't know anybody like that.
No, because I actually work on my own shit. I've rebuilt my car a million times. I don't really want to do it again.
Jake only takes 3 twisted teas. He doesn't need a 30 rack.
Yeah,
that's right.
True.
You can get Jake out for maybe 2 teas.
Maybe, but you'd have to hold him from me until I'm done the job, because if I start drinking while I'm working on it, it's never going to get done.
Yeah, he gets 3 if he does the happy ending as well.
That's right. Hey, you can't say no to money, I guess.
So, like we stated earlier, he was a high school dropout. He went from job to job, different parts of the country. But Lent also became an ordained minister with the Church of Christ, who always volunteered to help his. He always volunteered to help his neighbors shovel snow, cut their lawn, and
can he be my neighbor?
You go right ahead.
I don't want to shovel my driveway.
You know what's interesting though is you've seen this with a few killers where a lot of them will be heavily involved in church and ministry and stuff like that. I mean, even BTK was, the leader of his church basically. So
I kind of feel like, already with the stuff we've discussed on this guy, he's like positioned himself to be in areas around kids.
Yep. And, the thing with the church too is, oh, that guy wouldn't do that. He's an ordained minister.
Right. I mean, this guy, you can trust him.
Right. He's putting himself in a exactly where you can trust him.
But he also had signs of, and did things that were kind of aggressive at times. At one point he had lost the theater job in November of, I want to say it was
whatever
year this was. After the manager said that Lent had threatened him and his family.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And he once turned up to the neighbor's house with a baseball bat, angry because his neighbor's German Shepherd was scaring local children.
How ironic.
Get that fucking dog out of here.
Yeah, right?
Those are my kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't chase the kids from my house.
Yeah, right. He had a case manager at a nonprofit agency in his town, and she called him different and kind of goofy.
Goofy Louie.
Yeah, basically. She had came for help. Or he had came for help from her for like a month. She said he wore thick glasses and flannel shirts and jeans, and he had a good cheer that made him kind of a comic figure. People would laugh at him, type of thing. You know what I mean?
We're gonna post some pictures of Lewis on our Facebook page.
He does kind of look like that, like those glasses you get with the fake mustache and the big nose. You know what I mean? He kind of does.
Well, even look at Ed Kemper. I mean, other than being tall as hell, he looked like a relatively nice guy when you looked at him.
Yeah, he seemed kind of normal.
He did. He obviously his height and weight, it can be intimidating, but he didn't look, the part of what you'd think a serial killer would look like.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting. So where are we with this?
He was really friendly, according to a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
And, I think that's...
Friendly with local kids.
Well, yeah, especially during the 7 years that he worked at the theater. That's what he was... Right. I guess he was somebody that was seen there on the regular, and people identified him as being somebody who's there.
Yeah.
So, enough about him. Why don't we talk about his victims a little bit?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess a good time for that. We'll start with probably Jimmy Bernardo would be a good place to go.
Okay.
This is one of his alleged victims. James was 12 years old. He disappeared from Pittsfield, Massachusetts.
Is he an alleged victim? Wasn't he convicted for the murder?
Yeah, well, we'll get into that a little bit because I think what he ends up doing is saying he did it and then saying he didn't and then that kind of a thing.
Okay.
But this was he disappeared from the movie theater on October 22nd of 1990. This was when Louis Lent worked at the theater at the time, but he was not considered a suspect. Louis wouldn't do something like this.
Yeah, right. He's a nice guy.
But according to Lent's confession, he encountered Jimmy Bernardo outside the theater, and he used some kind of a hunting knife, and he made death threats to this child to force him to come along. If you don't do this, I'm going to stab you. I'm going to do, you know what I mean?
Wow.
So what he ends up doing is he forces the child back to his apartment. He then tapes the boy to a bed, cuts his clothes off, and then assaults him. So you can kind of use your imagination there.
Yeah, we don't need to fill in the blank for you.
The next morning, he killed him by hanging. He claimed that it was his intent to kill this kid all along.
Was this his first victim?
You know what? This is one that he talks about. Here's the thing. Louis Lent, there's only a few that he's known to have actually murdered, but there's so many that he suspected. So I would say probably not.
Right. He seemed like he kind of knew what he was doing.
Well, I think that he plays a lot. Like he's got this game where he's Louis, he's the nice guy. So it almost seems like this is something that he'd probably done for a while, probably a lot longer than they've imagined. So I would say no. I'd say this is probably not the first one, but this is one that's coming out that came out and kind of shed some light on Louis.
Right. And then after he hangs him, he actually brings Jimmy's nude body to Newfield, New York, which is far away from the place where he was abducted, but only a short distance from where Louis Lent grew up in his childhood home. So he used his frequent trips to visit his family in New York. In the next case, he kind of uses that as like an excuse to hunt while he's on his way to visit his family.
Yeah, and that's where he actually encounters 12-year-old Sarah Ann Wood of Frankfort, New York. She vanished while she was riding her bike in the afternoon about 2:30 on August 18th, 1993. She was on her way back from church in how do you say that? Sauquoit?
Sauquoit?
Yeah. Something? I don't know. I'm not French enough for that.
I think that's Native American.
It is. It definitely is.
Oh, okay. Well, close enough.
Damn Native American now.
During that evening, after she disappeared, her bike and her coloring books and crayons were discovered in a hidden area of brush off of a road in town. She was last seen wearing a pink T-shirt with the words "Guess Who" embroidered on the front, and turquoise blue shorts and brown sandals. Wow, wearing sandals while you're riding your bike?
That's risky.
That's living life on the edge.
Yeah. But I think what we're missing here is that she vanished. Another one just gone.
Right.
Something of somebody that's rehearsed. This isn't like number two.
Right. And according to Lent's confession, basically what he says happened is he was driving his van along the back roads with the specific intent of finding a child to molest and kill. And he came across Sarah Wood riding her bike. So
what a horrible goal.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
So again, he used a hunting knife to force her into the van. Then he used tape to bind her hands. He drove her further upstate into the Adirondack Mountains, where he raped her and clubbed her to death with a heavy tree branch. He buried her body using tools that he brought for the purpose of burying a body. And he told police that he didn't check to see if she was breathing because he doesn't like to touch dead bodies.
That's kind of weird.
Well, how did he know if she was dead?
I had read that about him in the past. What episode were we doing? We were doing one, and I came across Louis Lent making that comment, and I was like, that is so weird. Yeah. I'll kill him. I just don't want to touch him after.
Yeah, right.
Could you just maybe bury yourself after? But Lewis's luck is about to change. But I guess we'll probably get on to that after this beer break.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. We're back, and that was a much-needed break. I'll tell you what, we dumped out those skunk piss nasty, thick.
It's more like Adam replaced his, and I said, take mine too.
Yeah, so we went to Old Faithful Sam 76.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Sam.
You know what this would go great with? A nice barbecue.
Yeah, not Metheny style.
No, not really, but you know what would be great right now? A burger.
The weather's almost there.
Yep.
We got the right beer now, and we're on the right story. We're back.
Yep.
And Jason, why don't you take us away with Rebecca Severus?
So Rebecca Savarisay is from the Berkshires region of New York, which is relatively low crime. They're not used to this type of thing. But her crime is one that's perhaps the most notorious in that area, as Louis Lent basically tried to kidnap her. She was a Pittsfield girl. She successfully escaped his attempt on North Street in 1994. The police might not have caught him when they did if it wasn't for her escape. She was walking out of school at the time and saw a man who saw the abduction attempt was able to provide police with enough of a description of him to help to track him down.
Wow, thank God there was a witness.
Now, do you guys know how she escaped? I think you were talking a little bit about that earlier, Jason.
Yeah, Louis Lent kind of chased her and reached for her, I guess, and when he caught up to her, he had her by the backpack, and she basically faked that she was tired from running so much, and then she shook out of her backpack and got away. And I believe that man who witnessed it was able to help her.
Wow.
So that's pretty interesting. I wonder how this kind of looked. You think she pretended to faint, or
Who
she
knows?
just...
I don't know. I'm fat and out of shape, and I feel like I could catch a 12-year-old.
Yeah, it sounds like he just let her go. Maybe he wanted to be caught. Sometimes these guys, they get to a point where they want to get caught. Maybe he just... But there was somebody else around.
There's a lot of cases, too,
Yeah.
where a lot of people, when they're going to get kidnapped or something like that, they're almost submissive to it because they're kind of in shock, I guess. So a lot of times when they put up any kind of fight, they are more likely to get away because they don't want to deal with it.
It wasn't according to the game plan.
Right.
This isn't what they've done in the past.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have a very set image in their head of how this is going to go down.
Like even one of the women who got away from Ted Bundy had the same thing happen, or she basically fought back and got away.
That's true. That's true. And you know, now that you say that, a lot of times that's what happens is just a little fighting back.
Yeah.
Takes them off the game.
Creates a scene. So
And Louis slipped. Louis wasn't
Slippin'
ready for
Louis.
that, and Slippin' Louis went down. And on Thursday, January 12th of 1995, Louis Lent was convicted of several charges in relation to that attack.
When was he actually arrested for that attack? I believe it wasn't very far away, was it? So, what, a few days? Something like that?
Yeah, it was within just a few days. She basically...
they had a good description of him from that guy, so unless he immediately left the area.
Yeah, basically what had happened was the girl's story and the guy's story. People were able... I mean, if you take a look at this guy, he's got facial features that are very recognizable.
Do we know what he was driving?
That I don't know.
No,
I
I'm
didn't get
not
anything on that.
I'm not sure. I think he might have been driving a truck. That was really all I could find.
Oh yeah, actually, I saw that. Actually, it was he actually was borrowing the truck from a blind guy.
I'm borrowing a truck from a blind guy. Here, just take this for forever. Just go.
Yeah.
Well, how would the guy know if he was sleeping? Can't see nothing.
Yeah, he was. The truck's owner was a blind guy. He actually told police that he often loaned it to Lent. And when they found the truck that Lent had borrowed from him, they actually found the backpack and a loaded gun inside. So during the 3 days of interrogation after the arrest, that's when all the revelations came out, where he confessed to murdering 2 children. He actually claimed that he was subject to blackouts and memory lapses due to a close encounter in 1974 with a UFO in Virginia.
I hate it when that happens.
I hate it when that happens. Just walking down the road and get hit in the head by a UFO.
Hey, didn't that happen in our wonderful episode 2?
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that one.
Allagash, yes.
Allagash,
Yeah, that one. The guys who did too much acid.
Yeah,
got lost
here's
in the
my
woods.
question about blackouts. I don't know too much about them. They seem
Well, you don't drink enough.
I know about those kind of blackouts. No, but with the blackouts that these murderers and whatnot claim to have, usually only last a period of time, and then they come to. The first guy we talked about, he kidnapped him at night, raped him, did all that, and he murdered him the next morning. I would assume the blackout is probably over by that point.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because these blackouts are always at convenient times.
Absolutely, yeah.
And maybe it's just that as they're doing it, their mind forces it out. I don't know. But I think it's that I'm going to tell you so much, but maybe they're ashamed of what they did because they've had time to sit in a cell at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe you know what I'm saying? Maybe Lewis is...
It's an excuse. I mean, anytime I've had a blackout, I wake up with like weird porn on the TV, but never with a kid in the bed.
Unconscious in his own puke.
Why is my hand sticky?
What? Wow, what a visual. All right, then. Moving on.
Where are we?
We're talking about his being arrested
That's
and
right,
how he
the
got
UFOs.
caught with the truck and the UFOs. His lawyers used to argue that police coerced their mentally unbalanced client, obviously mentally unbalanced,
Yeah, that's for sure.
into confessing. A judge, however, ruled that no, that's bullshit, and allowed his statements to be admitted as evidence. At the time, he was living in a second-floor apartment on Hudson Street in North Adams, I'm assuming New York?
That's in the same area, I
That's
believe.
in the same area?
Yeah.
Okay. And was convicted in that attempt and sentenced to 17 to 20 years in prison.
Wow.
That's in New York. And
That's
then
in-
Mass, he got, what, 25 to... no, he got life without parole.
Yeah.
So he got 17 to 20 years for attempting to kidnap somebody and only 25 to life for actually murdering somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That doesn't make sense. What is this, Canada?
No, get out of here. We need more listeners there. We don't need to make fun of their laws. They do it themselves.
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah. But yeah, he is now currently in prison in Massachusetts. Lent, but here's another thing that's kind of interesting about Lent. We can't let him go yet. He's also suspected in a number of other child kidnapping cases. Lent recanted his confession and refuses to disclose the location of Sarah's body. But at some point, he ends up saying where she is, supposedly, but they never find
Yeah, it
her.
was someplace in the Adirondacks. He drew a map or whatever and said
Right.
this is where she is, and the police searched and didn't find her. I mean, that could be a number of reasons. I mean,
And as Lent sat in prison, the police have been able to put together a profile on him, and so they suspect him of a number of different child attacks that had happened.
Yeah, they suspect him of 8 more aside from the ones that were tried and convicted. There's no names here, unfortunately, but he's suspected of killing 2 12-year-olds, one found in 93 and one found in 1990. He's also suspected of killing 2 15-year-olds in 1982 and in 1983. He's convicted or thought to be murderer of a 10-year-old in 1990. And there's a couple more here, but you're getting the point.
Yeah.
You're seeing
they
the
also
pattern.
suspect that he may have had an accomplice.
That's another thing with Louis Lent, is that it's suspected that he worked within an organization of
NAMBLA people is what I heard.
Well, yeah, that he was active in NAMBLA, but that he also worked in a child, I believe, trafficking, like kidnapping and moving. I had read something along those lines on Reddit too. Did you guys see any of that?
No.
I did not, but
No.
I did hear there was a boy named Andy Puglisi who disappeared from Massachusetts in 1976, and witnesses he disappeared from like a pool and kind of their apartment complex, I guess you'd call it. And witnesses say that there was 2 guys who led these 2 boys into the woods. One of the boys made it out running, and Andy was the other boy who was never seen again. And witnesses say that one of the men who was seen looked like Louis Lent. So he might have had an accomplice for that. And you know, they say that they do say that was connected to the NAMBLA thing. So
It would make a lot of sense because, I was watching this show on TV earlier this week, and they were it was about how nowadays these kind of guys, they use the internet to work.
Jesus. All right, now that horrific moment of terror is over, and I finally figured out why it wouldn't record after that. Oh my god, that was crazy. Thanks, Jessica.
Yeah.
Scared the shit out of us.
Scared the
Adam just
shit.
literally ripped the headphones off his head and gave me this holy shit look.
Wow, we're freaking elbow deep in Lent here, and I have my head blasted off of this thing. And
You can blame me. I left Facebook open.
so anyway, we were at kind of just discussing Louis Lent here about what he's been suspected of doing and what he's actually done.
being part of NAMBLA.
Yeah, and as I was saying, these nowadays, as I saw on that show, these organizations, they operate online, and that's how you see they're always getting caught, through cyber attack, not cyber attack, cyber investigation, and all that.
I'm Chris Hansen, and this is Dateline.
Yeah,
right.
basically.
Yeah, right. But back then, it was very common for these guys to work in like packs, groups of 4 or 5 guys that could keep a secret amongst each other, and they would trade them off like baseball cards and stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy how the world has changed. I mean, think even 20 years ago, if you drove from here to work, you probably wouldn't be seen by a single camera. You're probably seen by 100 cameras on your way to work now.
Yeah, they listen to you as you're driving now.
Yeah.
And then all day you're on camera, depending where you work.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Crazy.
most of my life is recorded at this point.
Well, now you're doing it because you want to.
Yeah, that's
different.
But there are some things that Louis Lent did confess to, Jake.
Yeah, there's more, and as time goes on, he seems to confess to more. In 2013, he confessed to the murder of Jamie Lusher, who was a 16-year-old boy from Westfield, Massachusetts. He was last seen riding his bike away from his father's house on November 6th, 1992. Hey, 2 days after my birthday.
Yeah. Seems to have a thing with kids on bikes.
Yeah, really. Maybe he's just trying to steal their bikes and doesn't actually mean to kill the kids.
I don't think so. I think they're easy snatch and grabs.
Well, maybe, but I think the kids might have fought him for the bike, and maybe that's why he killed him.
Yeah, I would think that just having a kid on a bike, that's just an extra piece of evidence you're leaving behind.
Well, not only that, but it's harder to chase the kid on the bike.
No, that too, but
in the
you can't catch a 12-year-old running, but you can catch a 12-year-old on a bike.
Yeah, how does that work?
Yeah, good point.
The bike was found a few days later near a pond in Westfield. In his confession, he gave the location of Jamie's remains. They finally found him in Beckett, Massachusetts.
In a pond.
In a pond.
Did they actually find his remains?
Yeah, in the pond in Beckett, Massachusetts.
See, I thought that they hadn't found it. I thought that they had searched an 88. What I had read was that they had searched an 88 square acre pond, one of these what they call a 10-acre pond, obviously much bigger, but that's what they're referred to as deep as 58 feet in places. They said they remained hopeful, but I don't believe they found anything.
Well, then we have conflicting reports here.
Yeah,
that's what it looks like. So maybe they did, maybe they didn't.
Well, they must have. There must be something out on that. Maybe somebody knows. But there isn't a whole lot of information on Lent. I believe that from what I understand, they did not find.
Did they find any bodies of his?
I don't think so. Yeah. And that's another thing.
Yeah.
He also, at some point, says where Sarah Ann Wood's body is.
Right, in the Adirondacks somewhere.
And for the longest time, he didn't want to say anything on it, and they searched. But that doesn't mean anything. I mean, you leave a body out in the middle of the woods in an area, animals are going to scatter it and all that. So it's... one thing I can say about that boy is they did find his stuff there. They did find his bicycle and I think some of his other belongings at the pond.
Yeah.
But they never actually found him. Now, that isn't to say that, again, that he did not put this kid in the pond, but anything could have happened.
Right.
There's fish in these deep ponds. I could imagine that this would be something that would be gone relatively quick.
Right. Lent was charged with actually killing Sarah, but they only used his confession to convict him, I guess. And there is actually some doubt about how he can be prosecuted because he's all over the place. He confesses to things, and then he does that. He drew a map, and they never found her. He does weird things, and it's almost like he's purposely trying to, I guess, throw them off.
It is pretty risky to put somebody through trial without actually having a body as evidence.
It is. You don't try them once, so if it doesn't work out and you find the body, you're screwed.
Right.
Look at what's going on with our episode 1 of Ayla Reynolds. There's no body. They're trying to pull Justin DiPietro in for civil trial. They can't find him.
Yeah, he's been popping up all over Facebook the last few days, just people trying to find him.
Yeah.
Just a side note, I have a question about that. So they're trying to charge him with a civil suit for the murder of Ayla. Could she conceivably bring a civil suit against anyone else in the house that night for that?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
Because if they brought it against his girlfriend, and she might be more willing to talk. Because you have to testify in a civil trial.
Yeah. No, that is interesting.
So would she be able to bring it against them and say, fuck Justin?
Because you can easily find these people.
Exactly.
And the other good question is, would those people cave quicker than Justin? And they don't even know where Justin is.
Right.
That's part of the
problem. They might get some information though if they're on the chopping block. So
you know what though? Maybe we should save this. We'll bring this back up after we cover Louis Lent.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll touch up on something that's kind of happening local here because you do have some good questions.
You know what else is kind of crazy about Louis Lent? His lawyers don't let him go to New York. Because he's staying in Massachusetts in prison. His lawyers completely barred him from going to New York to improve on his map that he drew to find Sarah's body, or expand on any of his confessions.
Why is that?
I don't know.
Because they're lawyers and it's their job to protect their client.
So they're trying to get him
is
to
he
not draw
paying them?
maps, to
They're
not
trying
do
to,
anything at
yeah,
all.
They're not trying to have him confirm his guilt, basically.
Hey, buddy, you're confirming your guilt here, and we're going to do everything we can to stop you from doing this to yourself.
As a lawyer, they need some kind of reasonable doubt, and if he gives them the body, they don't have it anymore. So,
But
true.
is he paying them? That's my first question. How do lawyers get paid in a situation like this?
unless you're going to represent yourself, you pretty much have to do what your lawyers say, or they'll just leave.
Yeah.
Okay,
But as
then.
far as him paying them,
They probably has a public defender of some sort.
probably,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So that would be the people.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
tax
taxpayer.
dollars.
Thank you, taxpayers.
Thank
for
you,
this.
taxpayers.
So where else are we here?
So the
Good question.
FBI actually created a 50-member task force, which was composed of FBI agents and members of several New York and Massachusetts police agencies. They followed any and all leads to establish if Lent was involved in any other child disappearances or murders.
Including those other ones that we had listed off.
Right.
Yeah.
And they followed his movements throughout his life. They exchanged information with other police agencies around the country, which is rare.
Yeah.
They were unable to develop any links to the point where charges could be filed against him. So after being slowly reduced in size, the task force was actually disbanded in the summer of 1994, although some of the individual agencies involved have continued to investigate. So I would assume it's kind of like a cold case, situation where it's not a dead case, but we have so few members on it that there's nothing getting done.
Yeah, and you get to a point where you're just constantly running into that brick wall
Right.
that it.
He had very similar attacks to Wesley Dodd. Wesley Dodd, is that what? Yeah, that's what that says. Dodd was executed at Walla Walla Prison in Washington in January of '93. He murdered 3 little boys. Before he was captured, he recorded a daily diary on his search of victims and an obsessive quest for vulnerable children. That's kind of fucked up.
So you're saying that, like Dodd, Louis Lent was doing these same things
Yeah,
too?
he was doing similar things to Dodd.
So I bet you that they found information in those books, but they were not able to link them to bodies. And so right then and there, it's like, what is this? I mean, you can easily just write anything in some kind of a journal, but if they're not finding anything to back it up, it's really not anything but a bunch of words, right, Jason?
Right.
The difference between them, though, is Lent used weapons, and he had weapons ready. Dodd did not, and that was kind of what made him, I guess, I would consider more dangerous than Dodd. They're both very dangerous people, but when you're carrying around weapons, it kind of seems more premeditated in a way.
It's kind of interesting to compare these two child serial killers.
I know, right? Which one is worse?
Well, no, it just seems like maybe their minds work in a certain way. You know,
Right.
they have to reach a certain level of satisfaction, and that's why they're keeping these kind of records and
Yeah.
doing these kind of things.
It's
Maybe.
very hard to convict somebody based on a written word because you can always claim it was a story or something like that. I mean, have you guys ever heard of the Cannibal Cop?
No.
There's a guy in New York. He was actually a cop, and he was on like fetish websites about how he wanted to kill his wife and eat her, and he had an entire list of a notebook of people that he wanted to kill and eat. They ended up convicting him, and he did like 2 years in jail before the conviction got overturned because they were like, yeah, he wanted to, but he never did. It's just
Yeah.
a fetish fantasy he has. So
I mean, if you got a good lawyer, you can get off on almost anything.
yeah, absolutely.
You know, and I think so far from what we've discussed, I mean, Louis Lent clearly, he's given up some information, but I think a Louis Lent that's armed with a good defense could be walking the streets right now.
Right. Yep.
It's very possible.
Yep.
The thing is about him too, the information he gives is it's like 50-50. Sometimes it comes up, sometimes it doesn't. You know what I mean?
Also, one thing that was noted on an episode of 48 Hours that profiled Lent, I think this was on in the 90s. What do you find in there, Jason?
Keep going up a little bit.
Scrolling through notes.
So, the police actually, despite their suspicions, he's actually only been charged in 2 murders, and he hasn't been tried or convicted in either of those. So, like we discussed before, I mean, he kind of makes a confession, recants his confession, yada, yada. But we call him a serial killer, but he might not even be one. So,
It's interesting because he could have only have killed 2.
right. And like I said, he hasn't even been tried or convicted in either of those 2.
So I'm assuming he's been charged with 2 more on top of the 2 that he was convicted.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, okay. All right. That makes more sense to me now.
And that's where you get the number when you look at his profile. He killed anywhere from 2 to 8 plus.
Right.
Right.
And so what we should bring up now is that, we talked about Kimberly Moreau in a past episode, and he was somebody that the police, though it's not probable that it was him, he is still not ruled out as a suspect. And from what we know of the Kimberly Moreau story, Jason, how do you feel about that? I mean, he has said in the past that he's killed in Maine.
Yeah, he said he killed a child in Maine. He said he couldn't remember if it was a boy or a girl, which seems weird.
Yeah, that's kind of strange.
If your number is only 8, I mean, I would say only 8, but if your number is only 8, I would imagine you'd know the details of probably all 8 of them.
And if you got the mind to keep a diary of it,
right,
you think you'd remember it.
But the Kimberly Moreau thing, I don't think he was involved. I think that was more likely to be a local dirtbag. But it's out of his age range of consistency, at least for the most part.
I mean, he's suspected of killing somebody as old as the age of 21.
But the 2 that he was convicted for were much younger.
Right.
They were both 12 or 13, right?
Do you think that list that we have of ages of children that disappeared, do you think that's guessing? I'm assuming that this is a list of people that are from that point A in Massachusetts to that point B in New York.
With some similarities to his type of crime.
Along that run with some kind of similarities, and that's what they're getting.
Yeah. 21 doesn't, that just seems not like his MO, I guess. I mean, maybe that could have been something where somebody wronged him and he said, fuck this, I'm going to kill them. Because, he's not going to think twice to kill somebody. That's not his problem. But if he's out seeking the thrill, I don't think he'd be seeking a 21-year-old.
Opportunistic, maybe?
Maybe.
Sees a nice 21-year-old on a bike, maybe. Hey, I like bikes. Goes after. I mean, who knows? I mean, that's part of his thing, potentially. Who knows?
I like bikes.
Yeah. A lot of bikes on this stretch of road. Well, who knows? I mean, for some reason, the police want to link him to this. I mean, age 10, 15, is that getting kind of old? 12? I mean, he's got a couple of 12-year-olds.
Is that getting kind of old as you're going down in age?
I think 15 would probably be the maximum age you'd go for. I mean, I've seen 15-year-olds that might look 12. I've seen 12-year-olds that look like they're 21, but...
So how many people do you think he's killed? How many kids would be your guess? Are we close to the 8+?
I think it's more than 8, honestly. I do.
It's very possible.
What's your gut say? More than 8?
I don't know. I really don't know. I'm an evidence-based guy. If we only have evidence for 2, I really can only go with 2.
We really don't have any evidence for 2.
Well, he's been convicted for 2. You know what I mean?
He's been convicted, but they never found Sarah Ann Wood. He's good at he hit her body well. He could have easily have hit others pretty well.
That's the thing is he's certainly capable of more than 8 with his his ability to do it and his willingness to do it. But as far as his ability and willingness to hide it, that's maybe debatable that he could do it that much. He doesn't seem overly smart.
Louis doesn't seem that bright. He's simple Louis, But I would say he's probably done in maybe 8 or more, I would say, especially if he's linked, if he is actually tied in with the child sex trafficking rings and all that kind of stuff.
And the thing is they never mention anything of any crimes he may have committed in Florida. So who knows what he did when he was down there.
Yeah, and at that time, that was a cesspool of...
oh, yeah.
I think Jeffrey Dahmer was down there at that time in the 90s. No, he was there in the 80s.
Otis Toole.
Toole, yeah, that was John
Walsh.
Adam Walsh, yeah, that's a pretty interesting story. But I guess maybe we can wrap up Lent. We'll do a little touch up on a little update on the Ayla Reynolds case for those that are not in the state that aren't getting all the news that we're getting.
Yeah, my Facebook feed has been blowing up with reports of the courts looking for Justin DiPietro. I guess they have 60 days left. The mom does. Trista Reynolds, right?
Yeah, they just granted her a 60-day extension because the time ran out.
Now, what is the 60-day extension on? So,
she's filing a civil suit against Justin, trying to figure out what happened to Ayla.
They need to find him and physically serve him the papers.
Now, she filed this, I believe, in a Waterville court. It would have been a federal court, I believe,
right?
Probably in Portland.
Yeah.
But it's believed that Justin DiPietro still lives in Los Angeles, California.
Yeah, supposedly. His last known address was actually a parking garage in L.A. somewhere. So I know we have L.A. listeners. L.A. is our 4th biggest market, which is not saying much because we don't have a very big market, but that's okay. But if anyone knows where he is, say something.
Yeah. Yeah, please do. I guess what's happened is they haven't been able to find him yet. So the papers have not been in hand, like you said. And without this, does it expire?
It expires, and I don't think she can bring a civil suit against him any longer. So,
No.
if I had to guess, he's holed up in a fucking basement for the next 60 days.
Well, you made a good point earlier about can't she file suit against other people who were in the house, because it might make it, those people might want to talk easier, I guess, because they're obviously Justin's hiding.
And I, in my opinion, I'd say they're just as culpable as him in the crime if a crime was committed. I mean, at the very least, covering it up. So
Right.
It's crazy that they've all been able to keep quiet.
they all know something. They have to.
I'd say so.
Yeah, somebody knows something, and someone just needs to come out and say it.
Yeah, somebody knows something. If somebody knows where Justin is, if somebody's in communication with him,
Say it.
It's time to do something, to say something, to come forward. Not to us, to the state police, to,
Say it to us.
to the right people.
No, please don't come to us. We don't know what to do with that, but go to someone who does.
Go to the right people with that information.
Yeah.
But the Shed would really like to see.
That little girl deserves justice.
Yes.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. We'd love to see that. And though we don't think that Louis Lent had anything to do with the Kim Moreau disappearance, there are the only similarities that I think we can agree on with that is that he was an active killer of children in that time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And said that he had a tie to Maine.
That's all that we can go with. It doesn't really mean a whole lot because, to be honest, I did up a map of all these missing people and homicides that are unsolved, and there's a lot of kids that are missing in the state of Maine from that time frame.
Yeah.
So maybe Louis Lent did them all in. It
possible.
doesn't make any sense. But I don't. That's another case that it's been a very long time, and we would really like to see the Kim Moreau case finally come to closure. Especially now that Dick Moreau is climbing in age. Would be nice to see this for him and for his family.
Yeah, I just drove up in that area a couple months back with my sister, and there's still posters out there with bright pink duct tape. You cannot miss these things. He's still looking.
Yeah.
I think that killer's still in town, and I think it haunts him every day he sees those posters.
Do you think it haunts him?
I would think so.
I would hope so.
I hope so. Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
for sure.
Unless he's a serial killer, but if that was a one-time crime, I mean, I would think that would live with you.
Right.
We've gotten a lot of recommendations, Jason, to do more local stories. And, we're going to have you back on again very soon to do, James Hicks up in the Dover Foxcroft, Newport area.
Yep.
But we also are going to have we're going to be doing, a heightened focus on local stories.
Yeah.
Very interesting stuff.
In the next couple weeks, we got a couple of really interesting ones. We got an email the other day from a listener that talked about a little girl, Angela Palmer, who was murdered. Yeah, was murdered by her parents in their apartment, and we're not going to get super deep into it. We also have another case coming up in the next couple weeks that's a local murder from, I guess it was a call center.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a special guest coming in on that. So.
Like maybe a mile and a half down the road from me.
Lewiston, Auburn, the call center capital of this country.
That's right.
No
Gotta love it, baby.
Right?
Call center and Chinese buffet.
Yeah, right.
Love them.
Chinese buffets get shut down for bugs.
I've eaten so much lukewarm.
The hookers around here get shut down for bugs, too.
But come on, where's the sound effects, man?
I'm sorry, I'm reading emails. Hold on. I wasn't ready for that. Oh, see, I even fucked it up more. Try it one more time.
Thank you. So, so we're going to keep doing local stories. We're going to keep trying to find local ties, out-of-state ties, kind of like Louis Lent.
Yep. We got another message today that I won't get super deep in, but we could have a potentially really, really, really good story coming up here.
Yeah. So keep listening to us. Keep sharing us. Keep telling everybody about us because we're going to keep pushing out the stories that people are asking for.
Push them out.
Push them out.
You know what I found, too, is as we continue to go on, people are reaching out to us more and more, and they're offering these really awesome local things that, frankly, I don't remember these happening.
Yeah.
So it's just going to get more interesting as we get further in.
Yeah. So we're just going to, I think we're going to continue to let our listeners tell us what they want to hear, and we're going to keep seeing, go down that rabbit hole and see where this takes us.
We're going to follow your lead.
Yes.
You want to take us out with some social media here so I can finish my beer?
Yes, let's do that. So you can find us on Facebook. We are Stories from the Shed. Instagram, that is Stories from the Shed Podcast. Or is it Stories from Shed? Oh, no.
Stories from the Shed Podcast.
Stories from the Shed Podcast. Because
Yep.
our Twitter is Stories from Shed.
Correct, which I don't check. So
You can find us. If you say that real fast, it sounds Russian. Stories from Shed.
that's very true.
And so you can find us on Stories from Shed on Twitter.
You don't tell Shed stories.
You do
Shed
not tell
stories to you.
Do not let Shed happen to you. You can find us on YouTube.
You want to finish
Stories
this
from
with
the
the Russian
Shed.
accent? That's pretty entertaining.
But the one we like a lot is hit us up at our Gmail, and that is sftspodcast@gmail.com.
That is
You
correct.
can also find Jake on Tinder at Body by Twisted Tea.
Oh, thanks. You're the best.
On that note, Jason, thanks for coming in on such short notice again.
Not a problem.
Had a great
I'll
time.
be back in a few weeks.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Going to be great. Thanks for listening, guys.
Good
Bye-bye.
night, guys.